Hello, Spookaroos. This is your host, Eric D., talking to you. So, you know, this is a remix episode, but this is a good one. This is creepy audio clips. So, you're going to hear lots of strange and creepy noises, some of them truly disturbing. In this episode, there are parts where I was talking about a contest that I was holding. That contest is long gone, many years ago. So if you hear me reference that, I cut out most of the references. Some of them I had to leave in for one reason or another. So you're going to hear a little bit. So just know that contest is long gone and you missed your chance. But otherwise, everything else, I think I left pretty much as is, except the website's still the same, even though the name of the show has changed from Spooky Ass Shit to Spooky Times. But the website is still the same, spookyasshit.com or spookyas.com. And of course, you can find us on Instagram at spookyasshit, and you can also find us on Facebook. This has changed. This is facebook.com/spookytimes with Eric D. And you can also find our secret closed group, the Spookaroos. And don't forget, as we approach our 200th episode, I will be listing a Google phone number that you can call and leave a voicemail telling me which is your favorite show and any other thoughts you might have to share with your fellow Spookaroos that we will use on episode 199 as a celebration episode before we get to our big shebang for episode 200. And there is something big in the works here. So, until then, enjoy this remix episode. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Spooky Ass Shit. I'm your host, Eric Dwinells. And tonight, it's just you and me. Just the way you like it. Alright, how's that for you? That's my intro to our episode today. I am alone, but today we're going to talk about creepy audio clips. So I figured me fake coming on to you would be creepy enough to start the show. I figured I'd do a topic like this, though, playing audio clips, because that way it's not just me talking at you for the whole episode. This way you get a little break from me. But I will warn you right off the bat that some of these clips are not just kind of scary, they're actually scary. Usually we don't go for to terrorize people on the show. It's usually a lot more lighthearted. But today, some of these clips are actually pretty disturbing. So I just want to give you the heads up on that. I know most of you are probably down for it anyway, but it's great to have you here. Welcome. Before we get into it, I want to remind you about the Spooky Ass Shit website, spookyasshit.com or spookyas.com. And the reason I want to tell you about it is because each and every episode, we have pictures, and we have little breakdowns of the episode and what we talk about. And this one in particular, there's going to be links to all the clips that I play. So you can check them out in their entirety for yourselves. A lot of the clips I'm going to play I've shortened down because some of them were pretty long. So this way you can hear the whole clip if you want. You can see where it came from. You can look it up on your own. There will be some pictures too, even though it's audio. There are still things to have pictures of. And also from the website, you can check us out on our social media pages at Twitter and Instagram. All right, now, like I warned you, this show is going to get a little bit heavy at times tonight with some of these clips. So I wanted to start off gently. I'm going to play one that might not be relevant to everybody, and some of you might even say that's not even a creepy sound. I don't know why he played that. But if you grew up in New England in the 80s and 90s, perhaps even today, I'm not sure, I'm sure you will recognize this sound, and I will bet that most of you were creeped out by it. Did you catch that one? Anyone recognize it? That is the station identification jingle, I guess you might call it, from Channel 2 WGBH Boston, Boston's PBS station. Now, if you lived anywhere near Boston, probably through most of New England, you could catch that. And to me, as a kid, it was creepy. The graphics were creepy. You can go on YouTube, or you can go on the website, spookyasshit.com, and see a clip of the actual logo. the whole thing was just a little bit creepy with really no reason to be other than just it was kind of an intense noise, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, that one, sort of a joke. Now, let's move on to some real creepy stuff. The first clip I have for you tonight is from the Art Bell Coast to Coast radio show. Art Bell had this show for many, many years. It was a syndicated show that he did out of his home studio, I believe, in Nevada for a long time. And it was basically a paranormal themed show, kind of like this one here. The only difference between him and me is that he really believed most of the stuff that they talked about. He was super into conspiracies and aliens and all that stuff. This clip comes from September 11th, 1997. And in it, we're going to hear a man who claims that he worked at Area 51. I'm sure you all know, but just in case you don't, Area 51 is the alleged secret military base where they claim that alien bodies have been kept and UFOs have been recovered and stored, and that's where we're getting all of our modern technology from, is basically working backwards from this alien technology that they're keeping at Area 51. So let's go now to that call. And one more thing before we begin, I do apologize for the audio quality on some of these clips, but keep in mind they're coming from many years. They're from all over the place, so sometimes you can't avoid tape hiss and you can't avoid some other, muffled sounds and stuff like that. I tried to find the best quality version of them that I could, and this is, you get what you get. All still enjoyable, I hope. Here's Art Bell.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Well, look, let's begin by finding out whether you're using this line properly or not.
Area 51.
Yeah, that's right. Were you an employee or are you now?
A former employee.
Former employee.
I was let go on a medical discharge about a week ago, and I've kind of been running across the country. Oh man, I don't know where to start. They're gonna they'll triangulate on this position really, really soon.
So you can't spend a lot of time on the phone. So give us something quick.
Okay. Okay. What we're thinking of as aliens, Art, they're extra-dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the military. I'm sorry, the government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving the population to now, Art.
But they're not doing anything.
They are not. They want the major population centers wiped out so that the few that are left will be more easily controllable.
Discharge.
I started getting...
In some way, something knocked us off the air, and we're on a backup system now.
Lost all transmit capability on this end. Here in Nevada, the transmitter went belly up suddenly for some unknown reason. I've never seen it do this in all the years that we've been on the air. I have never seen the transmitter in this way just simply fail, massively fail, like a massive heart attack or some kind. And so we have gone to a backup system to get the signal to you right now, and I presume it is getting to you right now.
Now, as you heard, there were some interruptions in that recording. I only edited that slightly to take out, it was actually about 3 minutes where you just hear that hiss when the station went dead. So I took out a chunk of that and just left it a few seconds for you. But otherwise, I did not edit that clip. So those bumps and starts were in there. And as Art Bell says, that was highly unusual for him Now, there's different theories as to what happened here. Of course, there's the theory that the caller was legit and he really did work at a secret government project and they really did, find his location and somehow, through an electro pulse or some other kind of technology, interrupted Art's broadcast to keep this information from getting out. Another theory is that the caller was a joker, a prankster. But in his hoax, he actually revealed true information accidentally that the government did not want out, so they interrupted the broadcast at that point. And the other theory, of course, is just that the whole thing was just a hoax. Then, as a follow-up to this, on April 28th, 1998, so several months after that first call, a man named Brian calls in claiming to be the Area 51 caller. Now, I'm going to take you to that call.
The east of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Hi, Art. This is Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Hello. Everybody, I am the Area 51 caller. That's my statement, and let you or whatever tear it apart.
You claim you're the Area 51?
I am the man.
How do you account for the fact, Area 51 caller,
Okay.
that part of the way through your spiel, the satellite went down?
I have no idea, and it scared the heebie-jeebies out of me that night. I've called a number of times on your specialty line nights doing different, kind of wacky characters, and that's all that one was supposed to be. And if the call had been completed, it would have been ancient history by now.
Well, I guess you could give us a little of what you gave us then so that we could hear it and know it to be you.
Are you sure you want me to do that, Art?
I'm positive.
Don't, Art, please. I don't want you to ask me to do this. If I start doing that guy,
You're right about that. Now, let's just take that little sample that you just gave us so that we don't alter some sort of hard little reality here at the end of the program, and we'll let the callers be the judge.
Okay.
So what do you think? What's your judgment? Did that sound like the Area 51 caller? A lot of people on the internet say it did not. A lot of people say there's no way that was the same guy. It's probably part of a government conspiracy where they had someone who works on the staff call in and say, "Oh no, it's just a big joke, ha ha ha," to further spread disinformation. Well, you know me. I'm a skeptic through and through, so until I have reason to believe otherwise, I take him at his word. To me, they sounded pretty similar. I don't know. Shoot me an email. Tell me what you think. spookyassshit@gmail.com. Our next clip comes from a series of 911 calls that were placed by serial killer Paul Michael Stephanie. Now, serial killers oftentimes get nicknames from the press or from the police force, and Mr. Stephanie is no exception. He was known as the weepy-voiced killer for reasons that you will understand once we play the clip. He attacked at least 5 women and killed 3 between 1980 and 1982. But what was unusual about this man was that he would call 911 to report his crimes. And he always sounded as if he was having a mental breakdown. And I would like to note that these calls are not in chronological order.
Don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry what I did to Compton. I couldn't help it. Don't know why I had to stab her. I am so upset about it. I can't think of being locked up. If I get locked up, I'll kill myself. I'd rather kill myself than get locked up. I'll try not to kill anybody else.
Fire emergency.
Please don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry I killed that girl. I stabbed her 40 times. Kimberly Compton was the first one overseas. I don't know what's the matter with me. I'm gonna kill myself, I think.
Where are you?
If somebody dies with a red turn on, it's me. I killed both of you. I'm sorry. I'll never make it to heaven.
Calm down.
Oh, you find me. I just stabbed somebody with a knife stick. I can't stop myself. I keep killing somebody.
Now, some of that was a little hard to understand because he did get so weepy. But basically what he was doing was confessing to the crimes and naming victim Kimberly Compton is the one he mentions by name. And then he talks about what he did, but then he also mentions that he feels like he can't stop himself and he wishes they would catch him. And he also talks about thinking about committing suicide because he doesn't want to go to jail. He'd rather die than be in jail. And then he said something about he'll never make it to heaven now. Which is probably true if there was a heaven. The weepy voice killer was apprehended because he attempted to attack another woman, but she got away. She mentioned that she wounded her attacker on the head, and then he went to the hospital with a wound that had been described by the attacker, so reports were filed to the police, and he was caught. Who testified against him at his trial when they connected the crimes of the weepy-voiced killer to him. But there actually wasn't a ton of evidence. In fact, they could only convict him on one charge of murder and the attempted murder of the woman who got away. So he actually was found guilty, but only sentenced to 40 years. And despite how remorseful he sounded on the recordings, because he does sound like someone who's honestly suffering, obviously he's very sick, and he sounds like he's suffering with this disease, I guess you'd call it. Whatever this drive is that's making him murder. Yet, he does not confess to the crimes until almost 20 years later when he finds out that he has cancer and he's basically on his deathbed. He died in 1998 in prison. How are we doing so far? Are we hanging in there? Not too scary for you? Good. I mean, I hope, like I said, these are creepy, and they're meant to be a little creepier than usual, but I'm still not trying to terrify anybody. Our next clip is not so much creepy, it's just sort of in the realm of the unexplained, although actually it has partially been explained now. We'll talk about that at the end, but you see this pop up anytime you see, a video or a podcast or anything about like unusual sounds or mysterious noises. This clip pops up, so I wanted to address it. This is commonly referred to as the bloop. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration have hydrophones, which are a series of underwater devices used to study seismic activity, icebergs, and animal migration patterns in the ocean. In 1997, they reported that they had recorded something very unusual. It was an ultra-low frequency noise that lasted about 1 minute long and was heard by sensors over 30,000 miles apart. Scientists believed that it may have come from some unknown creature of the deep because its spectrogram, which is like those wavy lines you see on sound recordings, I'm looking at some right now. Its spectrogram is very similar to those made by marine animals. The problem is, it was far louder than the loudest known animal, which would be the blue whale. For an animal to make such a loud noise, it would have to be incredibly large. When you play the clip in real time, it doesn't sound like much, but if you speed it up to 16 times faster than normal, it makes a very clear noise, which is where it gets its name, the bloop. Here's a very brief clip of that noise now. Now, for a long time, there were all sorts of theories put out as to what this sound could be. But my favorite of all was that it was H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu, which is one way you say it. I know there's a bunch of different ways. I can't pretend to be the biggest fan, but anytime there's a giant monster involved, I'm down for it. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I suppose, that was not the case. Actually, upon further analysis, Science has revealed that the sound most likely came from the rupture of a massive iceberg. All right, are we ready to dip back into something a little bit more legitimately creepy, scary, terrifying now? The next clip comes from a real-life exorcism. Now, this is a story that I could do a whole nother episode on, and I probably will, actually. But it's the story of Annalise Michel. Now, Annalise's story was the basis for the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. The true story is Annalise was a 23-year-old in 1976. She was a German woman who believed that she had been possessed by demons, and her family also believed it. So they called in some Catholic priests who at first refused, but then were given special permission by the bishop, provided that they performed the exorcism in secret. Now, many years after the events, audio tapes belonging to the priest were discovered. This short clip is from the recording of the actual ritual. It's in German and Latin, so most of us won't be able to understand very much of it. But it's basically your standard exorcism patter. The priest asks, who the demon is and what can we do to get you out of here. And the possessed person basically says, I don't like crosses. I don't like prayers. Jesus was a jerk. It's basically all that kind of stuff. There's actually transcripts. I'll put a post on the website, spookyasshit.com, where you can follow a link that will take you to the transcripts of the exorcism. But here now is some of the actual recording from the exorcism in 1976.
Welches noch?
Das sag ich Ihnen nicht.
Im Namen Jesu.
Nein!
Nein! Im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des
Ja, deshalb noch ohne dich!
Stand am Jahre.
Der das ganze Deutschland verführt, oder? Ja, der ist ja noch drin.
Im Namen des dreifaltigen Gottes und aller Todessten Jungfrau Maria, sagt die Wahrheit.
Annalise's exorcism took 10 months, and actually it only ended because she died. Her family and the priest were later put on trial for murder and were found guilty of neglectful homicide. They were given 3 months probation and ordered to pay a fine. Like I said, eventually I'd actually like to do a full episode just on that case because it's very, very interesting. It's a case of most likely misdiagnosed mental illness along with religious hysteria. So it's very, very interesting, and I would like to do a full episode. In the meantime, we'll move on to our next clip, which I'm going to warn you, I find this one particularly chilling. The East Area Rapist, a.k.a. the original Night Stalker, a.k.a. the Golden State Killer, is a serial killer and rapist whose crimes took place in California between 1976 and 1986. He raped at least 50 and killed at least 12. But what was unique about this murderer, he was known for mentally torturing his victims. He was also known for taunting his victims and terrorizing them after the crimes, in some cases long after. The clip we're about to hear is a message that was left on the answering machine of one of his rape victims. Officials believe this is the actual rapist or killer himself speaking on the phone. Some of that might be a little hard to understand, but what he said was, I'm going to kill you. Then he said bitch several times, and then he said whore, and then he hung up. Now, the scariest thing about this clip is that this murderer was never caught. I was debating when I gathered these clips, should I do them in order that I feel like spooky, least spooky to most spooky, or should I do like kind of spooky with them like sort of a palate cleanser before we move on to another spooky one? So that's the one I ended up going with. So like I said, I find that last clip particularly creepy, and I didn't even want to, even though I think that's probably the creepiest one, I didn't want to end on it. I didn't want you too creeped out when the show's over. So let's move on to a less terrifying clip. This one is about a phenomenon known variously as skyquakes or sky trumpets, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other noises for it too. These are loud noises that come from the sky which appear to have no cause. There's no storms, there's no planes or helicopters or anything else that would make this kind of noise. But the noise clearly seems to be coming from the sky, yet there's no cause. Some describe them as booms, like sonic booms. Some say they are trumpet-like. These have been reported and recorded all over the world, including here in the U.S. The first clip I'm going to play you isn't exactly the best example of what I'm talking about, but I found the clip really interesting because it happens during a televised baseball game. And you'll hear it's not so much the booming or even the trumpeting that you normally have associated with this phenomena, but it does sound like a hurricane or something like that. The loud noise you hear on the tape is not some abnormality on the tape. That is happening in real time, which you'll hear the commentators talk about. They have a very hard time staying focused on the game once they hear this noise.
The first inning. That's a haunting sound, if we've ever heard one. 1 ball, no strikes. And the bunt is foul. The count is 1-1.
Now, what could that possibly be? Somebody shut the door.
It sounds supernatural.
Well, what do you think? Did it sound supernatural? Now I'm going to play you another clip, which is more typical of the trumpet-sounding ones. This was recorded just by someone, living their life on a cell phone. A lot of people say this sounds like trumpeting coming from the sky. I kind of think it sounds like furniture being moved around, or, better yet, Godzilla. Now, there's a lot of theories out there as to what these noises could be. Of course, first I like to start with the paranormal explanations. First of all, UFOs, of course. Could be some sort of secret military testing or machinery. Then it could be the sound of dimensions splitting. Now for more rational explanations. A lot of people have theorized that since these sounds usually are heard near large bodies of water, large deep bodies of water, it could be gas escaping in a giant rush from below the depths of these bodies of water. In an article I read in the New York Times, it basically says that the scientists that you ask about this are pretty nonplussed. They're just like, oh, that's just Earth's regular background noise. It's always present. We just don't normally hear it. Because our ears aren't that good at hearing things as far as species go. And also because there's just a lot of noise in our environment. So usually it blocks out that kind of noise. All right, we are at our final clip, and this one is a doozy. I think this is one of the more interesting clips that we have tonight. And it is scary, but, well, you'll see. This is called Ghost Tape 10, but it's also known as Operation Wandering Soul. This tape was made during the Vietnam War by the United States. The Americans were seeking to use psychological warfare. When it was discovered that the Vietnamese believed that the dead must be buried in their homeland, or they would be condemned to wandering aimlessly throughout the world, the United States military sought to exploit that belief. They spent weeks recording a 4-minute tape that included spooky sounds and a message from a dead Viet Cong soldier. The Army would play these tapes close to Vietnamese villages, or sometimes even in tunnels where they suspected Viet Cong were hiding, in hopes of driving them out with fear, or at least make them think of their loved ones at home and inspire them to drop their weapons and return home to their loved ones. The tape is in Vietnamese, but before I play it for you, I will read the English translation. I should point out that I edited this heavily because the audio is a little bit rough to listen to. I still think it's worth listening to, but I did shorten it down quite a bit. So what I'm going to read is much longer than what you'll hear from the actual recording. But again, a link will be available on spookyasshit.com if you wish to hear the entire recording. On the tape itself, the first sound you hear is traditional Buddhist funeral music. You'll hear some drumming and some chimes, and you'll also start to hear wailing sounds and ghostly moaning. Then you hear the voice of a little girl. Apparently her name is Hai. And she cries out for her father. She says, "Daddy, Daddy, come home with me. Come home. Daddy, Daddy." Then the ghostly father responds, "Hi, who is that? Who is calling me? My daughter? My wife? Your father is back home with you, my daughter. Your husband is back home with you, my wife. But my body is gone. I am dead, my family. Tragic. How tragic. My friends, I come back to you to let you know that I am dead. I am dead. I am in hell. Just hell. It was a senseless death. How senseless. How senseless. But when I realized the truth, it was too late. Too late. Friends, while you are still alive, there is still a chance that you can be reunited with your loved ones. Do you hear what I say? Go home. Go home, friends. Hurry. If not, you will end up like me. Go home, my friends, before it is too late. Go home. Go home, friends. I hope you enjoyed my interpretation of the tape. Now, let's go to a clip from the actual recording.
Vợ tôi kêu tôi đang gì? Trở về đi các bạn ơi, kẻo không thì quá muộn rồi, quá trễ rồi. Trở về đi, về đi, về đi các bạn ơi, về đi, về đi, về đi, về đi.
Now imagine that coming through some loudspeakers late at night in the middle of the jungle. Even if you assume that it wasn't paranormal, it's still pretty creepy. It still might give me the spooks on a dark night when I know there's a war going on. those are all the creepy clips I've got for you tonight. How'd I do? What do you think? Were you creeped out by any of them? Did any of them scare you? I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Please remember to go to the website, spookyasshit.com. Please, if you could, give us a review on iTunes and rate us. 5 stars is preferable. It really means a lot to me when I see those numbers going up and up, so please share the show, tell your friends, be part of the contest, win some of my personal spooky ass shit. And until next time, don't be afraid.
Were you scared?
Spooky Times is a Witchfinder production.